This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets. European Union officials discussed diversifying oil stocks and creating a buffer for diesel and gas oil during an emergency meeting of the bloc's oil coordination group, one told Reuters. Friday's meeting was called by the EU Commissioner for Energy, Kadri Simpson, to assess potential supply risks in case the Israel-Hamas conflict triggers a broader regional one. This month's conflict in Gaza has revived memories of the 1973 oil shock during the Yom Kippur War, when the OPEC slapped an oil embargo on Western supporters of Israel, triggering fuel shortages. The meeting of the EU's Oil Coordination Group concluded that the risks are much lower than 50 years ago, as Europe only relies on oil for about 30% of its energy mix, although Saudi Arabia is one of its top 3 suppliers, the official said.
Oil prices climbed about 3% to a one-week high on Friday on worries that tensions in Israel and Gaza could spread into a wider conflict that could disrupt global crude supplies. Brent futures rose $2.55, or 2.9%, to settle at $90.48 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate, WTI, crude rose $2.33, or 2.8%, to settle at $85.54. Brent's premium over WTI rose to its highest since March, making it more attractive for energy firms to send ships to the U.S. to pick up crude for export. For the week, Brent was down about 2% and WTI down about 4%.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
Indonesia on Friday flew its first commercial flight using palm oil-blended jet fuel, as the world's biggest producer of the commodity pushes for wider use of biofuels to cut fuel imports. Operated by flag carrier Garuda Indonesia, the Boeing 737-800 ING aircraft carried more than 100 passengers from the capital Jakarta to Surakarta city, about 550 kilometers, 342 miles, away. Garuda Indonesia CEO Irfan Setiaputra said, "We will discuss further with Pertamina, Energy Ministry and other parties to ensure this fuel is commercially reasonable," Irfan said during a ceremony, adding the plane was set to return to Jakarta later on Friday.
Argentina's government will import 10 fuel shipments to guarantee local supply of petrol and diesel after a recent demand spike and shortages, the country's energy secretariat said in a statement on Friday. The measure aims to resolve shortages in recent days that led to long lines at service stations in the country to fill up with petrol, as well as concerns among farmers of a scarcity of diesel, key for the upcoming planting season. Refining capacity at the country's main refineries will be increased, the secretariat said in the statement. And in the next few days the shortages will be resolved.
Next, we have the top news in metal markets.
Reserves of high-grade nickel ore in top producer Indonesia may be depleted in around 6 years, a miners' association has warned, risking shortages of the material used to make stainless steel. Indonesia's high-grade 1.7% nickel ore is mainly used for the country's nickel pig iron, NPI, production, a feedstock for stainless steel, while lower grade is used to make products for the electric vehicles' batteries. The government needs to make comprehensive control efforts for the resilience of nickel reserves, so that it can sustain the downstream strategy and increase added value, Maidi Katran Lenki, Secretary General at the Indonesian Nickel Miners Association, said in a presentation.
Beijing's move to restrict graphite exports will have a disproportionate impact on foreign makers of electric vehicle battery components who have not yet shifted to using as much synthetic material as Chinese counterparts, industry insiders and experts said. China's latest limit on critical mineral exports, which Beijing said is not targeted at a specific sector, has fueled uncertainty in the global EV supply chain since it was announced last Friday. Some Chinese manufacturers, including those with operations overseas, said they expect limited impact from the rules, as most EV batteries they make use a grade of synthetic material that is unaffected by the curbs. We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector. Chicago Board of Trade's soybean futures rallied and Soymeal hit a contract high on Friday on strong demand for U.S. supplies, analysts said. U.S. soymeal exports are on their way to new highs this season after a poor soybean harvest in top soymeal exporter Argentina earlier this year. Domestic soymeal users, such as hog and poultry feeders, must compete with exporters for limited U.S. supplies. CBOT January soybeans settled up 19-1/4 cents at $13.19 -1/2 a bushel and touched a one-week high. December soymeal finished $12.90 higher at $442.40 per ton after notching a contract high of $448.40 per ton.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.